go.
Does Jim Sharp want to come in?
Is Jim here?
Yeah, he's there.
He's there.
How come I don't see him?
He's there at the top.
I see him at the top. Hi, Jim. Good to see you.
Okay, this is weird. I don't see him.
Across the top, the little heads.
Oh, I thought, sorry.
Can't accuse me of having no big head. I ain't got no big head.
It's up at the top.
Okay, people are starting to find us.
Okay, no worries, Jim. We'll just give you some props this way then.
So we had, if you're just coming in, we had a bit of a screw up on the Blab thing. For some reason, it disappeared or it recorded itself, but did not record itself. So we had to start a new one. So hopefully you'll find us. And we're just going to have to chat. We're going to blab. You know what blabbing means? It's a bizarre name because blabbing means telltale.
Blah, blah, blah.
Right? Well, no, blabbing is when you blab on someone. It's like your little sister blabbed on. You're tattling.
Really?
Scotty and I have talked about this before, but we had Scott's background in public broadcasting. We've got a local television station back in my hometown that is called Blab. I mean, that's this Blab.
Oh, yeah.
It stands for Basic Local Area Broadcasting. That's
Great.
That's cool.
So again, before, if you see us, hopefully, hi everybody, come on in. If you're joining us, we had a discussion about experts, and it was taken from a quote from Eric Enge, who said basically be an expert or go home. So if you want to jump in and discuss that, are you having an issue being perceived as an expert? What does it take to be an expert? Do you have to be an expert in one particular niche? Go ahead. We can talk about that. Or if you want to talk about anything else, about Ray2Go, who we are, what we do, why we do it, jump in and we'll answer your questions.
Yep.
BL, okay, so why don't you guys plug stuff right now? BL, you have an amazing thing going on tomorrow. Talk about it.
I do on Blab. I am leading a panel on for Communications Week New York, which is in its second year. And tomorrow we're talking about the video revolution for brands. And my panel is so fantastic. I have Bethany Simpson from iMedia Connection, and she has hosted more than 500 CEO interviews. Plus, she does she and her company do brand videos. I have Ian Chi, who is the director of strategy for MRY, and they have clients like Microsoft and Sony, and
wow.
They have really big clients, Visa, and they do some fabulous work. And I also have Hillel Seinfeld, who is the COO and co-founder of Vubix, which is a player that more than 80,000 companies use to basically get the ROI of their video that is distributed through this player. And so he's going to be able to talk about measurement and how you tell the ROI of your advertising on pre-streams and all that sort of stuff. Because, in the end effect, we do need to measure and make money with these things. And one of our big questions is, do you just have to be cool, or do you have to convert to sales? And so we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about what works, what doesn't work. It's going to be, I think, hard to fit in 30 minutes, but we're going to try.
That's amazing. This is actually falls into what we were talking about earlier, being an expert. And yes, we're going to be talking about Blab a bit. So would Blab be a good vehicle for helping you establish your expertise in something? How would you use Blab?
Depends on what you're selling. I think Blab is fabulous for interviews. I think Blab is excellent for demonstrations. I think, I've seen people doing a lot of cooking shows. Honestly, just listening to people talk is not that thrilling to me.
Not to me either. Yeah. And I think you make a good point. There's got to be some sort of articulate message.
Yeah.
And being able to get to the point.
To have a point.
Yeah.
Randy, I know you had to probably go out there and harvest some peanuts or something, but you've dealt with a lot of bigger businesses in branding and advertising. Do you see this as an instrument that they could use?
Well, I think I agree with BL. It depends on what the business is. I mean, I could see there's a lot of gerbils on Blab right now. They're just chatting away and hanging out. And talking about BS this way and whatever, but there's also some interesting conversations because you can get, I watched one the other day that was tackling racism, and it was pretty weird because you had it was strange. You had a black, an African American and a black South African.
Okay.
Those two got into a total different conversation that you don't really hear. So it's very interesting to hear those two cultures talking about something that in our culture is. So conversations are good, but again, there's a lot of gerbils out there.
But how do you find those conversations?
If you're doing something like BL said, a cooking demonstration or I see a lot of inspirational messages. Somebody comes on here and maybe gives an inspirational thing in the morning. So a church or a pastor or something like that could utilize that and give testimony or something like that. There's various ways that these vehicles can reach masses that you do. Now, Coca-Cola, I don't know. I mean, if they wanted to, we're bringing out a new soft drink and they're going to launch it on Blab and have a big event for that, maybe.
I don't see that, honestly.
I'm just saying that. How do you got to think about what is the product, what is the service that you're doing?
But
cooking. If you're a cook, or say you just wrote a book, and you want to promote
good for authors.
Yeah, good thing like that.
Okay, so there's a double-edged sword, though, right? I mean, if there's no message, if there's no point, if it's not articulate, and people just ramble on and on and on.
I'm sleeping. Dave Williamson asked.
But what does that do? It tells everybody who's looking at you that they're going to go to sleep too. And I think
that's what I mean.
The double-edged sword is everybody's jumping on this platform, but how are they actually going to use it?
Well, Dave Williams is asking us, couldn't Ray's show have been in a Blab? And the answer to that is, yeah, it probably could have. But you do not have the same controls. You do not have the same options on Blab as you do on Hangouts. So, this platform has its uses, and Hangouts is not something that you should give up on because it's got HD, it's got it's got some what I'm trying to think of the things you can use, apps that we don't have here on Blab.
Also got a table for 5, so we can have.
So we can. Otherwise, can't have Scott on.
15 in there.
Yeah, but it becomes a different show, BL. I mean, because I thought about that, right? And there are a lot of Blab talk shows, and I think in that context, this is good. It'd be like your classic radio talk show. You'd have your host, you have the co-host, and then you invite people in for like limited times. If you have a question, pop in, ask a question, then beat it. I think that's a really good platform for that. But you're right. I think in terms of the Ray2Go show, maybe because it was just set up that way. I think this platform would play, and it does. I've seen several of these. But say you're a podcaster. And you're going to go live. A lot of podcasters, I think of Mark Marion or somebody like that, they're always interviewing somebody once a week, so you have the ability to lock people out and have, so I'm a podcaster and I've got the Ray2Go show and I'm interviewing Jess for about whatever, and you could create a tremendous audience. If you're doing it in a genuine type quality delivery. Now, if you're just in there talking BS all the time, then it's like BL said, I'm gonna go to sleep. Or actually, what I do is I go in there and I look, and then I can tell real quick. No, I don't want to watch this or listen to this stuff.
But what you will notice here is that there are very few shows that actually have anybody really watching.
Yeah.
People come, they subscribe, they look, they go. There are shows that have 1,000 people watching. Michael Seltzner has a lot of people watching.
Schaefer did a show the other day where he was Asked the Expert, and he had a pretty good audience watching his.
Yeah, I've seen 1,000 on some. So again, it comes down to what we were talking about on the show, Ray. It's, expertise. It's, having a niche. It's being able to present it. I mean, all of the things that we talked about, like what makes you an expert and how do you establish yourself as one. This is a place where if you've done that somewhere else, you can bring people in here. I think it's going to be really hard to develop an audience only from here, just like you can't develop. There's no magic bullets.
See, that's the problem we have. It's that dichotomy. We have the show over on this platform, say Crowdcast or my website. Then we come over to Blab so that we can have an actual live interaction with people. Someone brought up a point that they don't interact while we're doing the show. And we used to do that when we did the show on the event page with Comment Tracker when it worked. And I kind of miss that, but I also kind of enjoy the fact that we can dig deep into a topic and then go to a platform that is built for interaction and talk directly and not have to worry about stopping and starting the momentum of the show. So I think that I'm happy with that. I mean, there's still issues about those two platforms that I'm dealing with, but I kind of like this as a separate interactive platform.
I do too. And with our show, we're starting to do a pre-show blab, because when we come and do an after-show blab, then people come here and they say, well, what was your show about? So if we do a pre-show blab and try and send people to the show, I think it's going to be more effective in that way. We'll see. This is all a giant experiment. I mean, we both have tried simulcasting the show, and that just doesn't really work. Because it's like a little postage stamp.
But also, we're squeezing something into something that wasn't made for it. We're putting that sort of square thing in the round hole thing. Blab was made, and they're looking at podcasts. This is a podcast platform. That's how they see it. And what we do on the Hangout on the YouTube live stream is not so much that. Yes, both you and I, turned it into an audio cast. But for me, that's the big asset of doing it on YouTube, is that I can make short videos. I can use it for audio. I can use it for content for a blog post and all that. And yes,
here now, because right after the show, you will have a YouTube video and a separate audio feed. And and whatever they're doing is astounding, because a half-hour video from Blab uploads to YouTube so fast that they have some magic formula. Because if you try and upload an MP4 to YouTube, it'll take an hour.
I take a lunch break. Yeah.
Here, boom, done. And so they're doing something great.
The cool thing is, we don't have to be experts in that to be an expert in our own business, right?
Right.
Yes, Brandy.
Well, you kind of do.
Brandy, can't hear you.
We lost your sound.
My dogs were barking, so
Well, there's
Scott and Coach are having a pretty good conversation about interaction with Blab. So I'm going to jump off and let Coach come in here and interact and share some stuff with you. Good seeing you. I love that necklace, BL. You look fabulous today.
Doesn't she look great? See you, Randy. Thanks again.
Thanks, guys. You wouldn't know I'm sick, would you?
Yeah.
No, not at all. You look great. You look fabulous.
And I want to go back to something that you said, BL. There's a difference with being an expert in something and knowing how to do it to get the job done. And I think that when we're thinking about our businesses, and every single person, whether it's an individual or a team, and especially on teams, we all wear these hats, and we end up being given these hats by our innate skills or by what we come with, even if it's not part of our regular job, because we're willing. There are so many things that come into play, and knowing how to get this started and knowing how to get the video done is very different than being an expert at it. And I think that that's something that we weigh a little, let it weigh on our shoulders a little too much. Because if we would just let it go and be like, sure, I got to know how to do it, but I don't have to really know. I just got to get the job done because it helps me with my one thing that I'm working on and that I'm helping clients with. And I think that's something.
I disagree with you a little. I think you ought to be good at it if you're going to do it. So I think
knowing the steps is good at it. But
let's welcome Coach.
Hi.
Yes, hi, Dave.
See you.
How you doing, Dave?
I'm doing great, guys.
Good. Thanks for dropping by. You probably guessed we were talking about experts on the show, and
well, that's why I'm here.
Well, okay. And you have a niche. I mean, you're an expert in a certain niche, and that makes life a lot easier. People in the digital marketing thing, I think they struggle with that because it's so wide. You don't agree?
Yeah, no, I do.
Okay.
And I think a lot of what you guys were saying on the Ray2Go show, just got me really invigorated because you were raising so many issues that people that I'm seeing on different platforms are struggling with and using all the new tools in order to gain that recognition. Now, as a preface, I've been live streaming since 2002. So
Wow.
I've been doing this kind of beyond webcam for, 14, 15 years. And have gone through all the different kinds of technologies out there. In fact,
as a cancer coach or in
no,
other?
I mean, that was before my cancer journey. And I was teaching people how to do live streaming. In fact, I developed my own software called VLink Live, and was a very different utilization of live webcam into group community building. And it was fun to watch all the technologies start to change direction. And now even more fun as people are suddenly coming into live streaming and saying, oh, this is fabulous. I said, well, it's been around for 10, 15 years, and it's not new. It's how it's being used. And that's what I'm struggling with. And I think that's why I came into here. I watch your show, Ray, just about every week. I mean, it's one of those great shows to watch, but you don't know that I'm watching, and that's part of the dilemma, is that you build an audience and you
that's the cool thing here
with them. You don't know what kind of impact you're having. And even on Blab, you don't get an account of who's watching the replays. And I've seen hundreds and hundreds of replays. I'm addicted to Blab. I mean, I've thrown out my television and I'm just watching Blab broadcasts all the time. But I'm a Hangout enthusiast, and I had done Hangouts for, when Ronnie Bincer started, I was right with him learning, what Hangouts was all about, and love the fact that you could interact in a very clever way, particularly with Comment Tracker. But
you still can.
Well, it's very difficult to use, and most of the Hangouts I attend are just like the Hangout you guys ran. Good expertise on screen, minimum to know interaction with the people that are, there to participate.
But that's okay.
Yeah, that's okay.
Well, as long as the audience knows that, and that's the format that you want.
Yeah, and I just want, because that was a choice we made, and it was a difficult decision for me, because we used to do, and when we had the Ray Bunch show, which is the same crew, just different title, is that we did use it. I mean, I used the Comment Tracker pretty well every week.
Until the damn thing stopped working.
Well, luckily for me, it's worked most times. But there was a decision to pull people to not actually do the show on the Google Plus event page. So I can't use Comment Tracker in that sense. I'm trying to get people to my website. So I embed, and I'm using Crowdcast now. I probably won't for much, but you can interact on Crowdcast. So if you saw the show on my website.
Q&A section. I bounced around to your YouTube and to your Crowdcast page, and seeing what are you, who's been playing with this technology, and BL, who's been playing with it forever, are doing with it to interact. If you want to interact with the audience. And as BL says, sometimes you don't. I mean, most of my shows are just expert interviews, and you're sharing content, and you try to grab email addresses and follow up afterwards.
Yep.
It's a different business model.
Totally. And that's why we use that. That's why I love the Blab thing, because it's like, okay, in a TV studio, you have your post show, or when Carol Burnett used to come out before the show and open the lights on the audience and ask questions and all that after the skits and all that. That's kind of the thing that I like about the Blab, and that for me, that's a purpose that is unique to Blab, because that I'm comfortable with it. You can have people come in and out of the conversation. You can change topics if you want. It's more casual. But the Ray2Go show is very topic specific. We only have 30 minutes to dig deeper. And we've had a number of comments last year or so that it goes by too fast. People want to know more about the subject. Yeah. And because we use Comment Tracker, we would cut up the show with comments and answering people and saying, oh, hi. Yeah. So we thought we made a decision to let's condense the show. Let's make the show about the topic so that we can exchange as much information as possible. Then let's move over to Blab so that people can talk about it. Now, BL had a good point. Would it be good to have a pre-show to get people to see the show and then discuss? But then we're talking, okay, unless I get a sponsor, I can't afford to spend half a day doing, preparing a pre-show.
Well, we're going to do a 10-minute pre-show, and we have a format for it. That's the thing. So we decided that, it has to have a particular use. that you can't just come on here and talk.
Okay, so
Yeah.
let's talk about that. And an expert, what do you guys think? And let's take a little poll here. And anybody watching, I want you to jump in too. Experts are both rebellious and conservative. Agree or disagree, and why?
Say it again.
Experts are both rebellious and conservative.
I don't think they necessarily have to be either, or both. I don't think being an expert means being an expert. I don't see how that would call for you being rebellious. Being an expert is basically knowing something really, really well, and usually a small niche. I would say that's conservative, if anything. I think people who tend to be rebellious tend to be all over the place, try to do as much and know as much about everything as possible. So I would say, if it answers your question, I say conservative.
I'm going to leave you and let someone else come in and have that.
See you later, BL.
See you, BL.
Okay, what do you think, Dave?
I'm still trying to understand the words because, yes, as a person, I've been self-employed all of my life. I've never worked with anyone. And so to survive, I am creative and could be called rebellious because I tend to open up new territory all the time. And I, not just following the shiny new object, I'm actually trying to, because I want to have an expertise, I see part of my expertise as being ahead of the curve on all the different topics that I find myself in. But at the same point, I have to be conservative because my audience isn't with me where I'm at on the curve. And every time I get ahead of the audience, I lose my audience. So if I'm conservative in what I'm doing, how I'm presenting, I get a comfort zone with my audience. They hug me, I hug them back. And then I can go ahead and say, oh, but do you know, there's more coming, and hook them back into, the next journey that I'm on. So I like your terms. I know it applies to me. I'm trying to think, does it apply to all experts?
Yeah, I wonder if adventurous would be better than rebellious.
I think rebellious is important because they're a little bit disruptive, right? We're being rebellious. We're willing to be disruptive. We're willing to go out of our way to think outside the box, which comes at, I think creativity is a word that you use, Dave, that is very important. Yet conservative is it. And I would say it's the one thing. It's this is what I do, and this is really what I'm good at, and I have all these other journeys that make up who I am. But when I'm doing my thing, you know it. When I'm in that groove, I know it. It's almost that place that you lose time, and there's really not a desire there's a desire to know everything there is about that thing, that one thing, but not necessarily a desire to know everything about everybody or everything about everything.
Cinepost says that experts tend to think inside the box.
Well, I'll disagree with you.
Yeah, I'll disagree there too.
Yeah. What possibly there? I think maybe what level of box? Because I think we're like onions, right?
Is it a round box? Octagonal?
Could be a round box.
We square the circle.
But that's true. Somebody who knows what they know, they're going to ask questions to figure out how what they know can help another person. So from that perspective, I could see inside the box.
I'm interested, Dave, you've been on live streaming for a long time, much longer than I have, and you've seen these platforms come, and there's new ones every day. What do you see? Where do you see this going? Is there a direction, a common direction that you see?
This is the most exciting time for live streaming because what we're getting are the people who are now embracing it. I mean, just take a look at Periscope and Meerkat and how that brought in a wholly different kind of audience who started to think out of the box, as Jessica is saying, and said, what do I do with this? I mean, when Applebee 2 months ago, had everybody with their mobile device to get a free appetizer, you had to live stream what you were eating. There were, 3.5 million free appetizers given out. Now, it was the most boring live stream I ever attended, watching people just eat and get drunk all through the day. But it brought in a huge group of a new kind of audience that wanted to interact with people with video, which is what we saw in the market in the early, well, as the century changed over, and we were starting to say, hey, can we add live streaming and do what we used to do with satellite feeds? I mean, I started with video satellite feeds way back in the 80s, and it was costing us thousands and thousands of dollars to do it. And suddenly web technology came around, and we ended up seeing a new way of doing it. Today, as you say, every day we're hearing about new platforms. BL was just talking about YouNow. There's going to be other thinking of what do you do with the platform? And Blab in particular intrigues me. I don't know, did you see their session? Well, their beta site was being used yesterday with some of the new features that they're about to release this week. And, they're going to have a comment tracker built into it, which is going to change the dynamic. They've got a slideshow capability. It's going to change the dynamic.
Wow, that's huge.
Yeah. So the fact that they just released embedding, on Sunday that allowed everyone to do it. But even on the embed stream, like on your page, I had to come over here to the real Blab site because some of the features aren't there.
Right.
They're just not there yet.
It's more like a replay almost. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but that's because you've got these people who are under 30 who have not seen what's been out there over the last 15 years. They're looking at it fresh. They're looking at it with a brand new perspective of what do I do with this capability to communicate? Just before I came onto your show, I was listening to one in Europe where the marketers would be definitely around the 30 age mark. And they were talking about marketing concepts that I forgot that it was new to them. It was like it was so old to me. I said, really? You're just recognizing that you can make a communication when you, as they said, you can look at someone in their virtual eyes. It's as good as being face to face. I say, whoa, I mean, they're just coming into the marketing principles, the psychological principles that have been in this field for almost 20 years, I guess. So that's driving new technology and new approach. And those of us that are in the expert field in our own special area, like in mine in cancer, we're finding that audience are babes. They don't understand any of it. And we can come in and say, as Jessa said, here's the conservative model. You stay in this box. We're going to tell you what you can play with, but stick with me as the expert. I'm going to lead you down the path into the next generation because I'm already there. I mean, that's part of what I want to do.
So what I'm hearing you say, and I'm kind of surprised by this, I think, in the sense that you are a cancer coach, but you want to bring people along the live streaming path when they're in their own cancer journey? Or are you a coach to help people on their journey of cancer? And this is where I think what are we good at? What is our one thing becomes a little blurred, because we could be really good. And our hobby might be, here's what live streaming is, here's the history. And if you really want to jump on board, wow, is it moving really fast? And these are all the things that you need to know on this part where we share a hobby. But that's very different than bringing people along in the journey of what drives us to be the expert that we're in. And I feel like that's really blurred in this conversation. Am I right in that feeling, or did I totally miss the boat somewhere?
Well, I think it depends on how you look at some of these issues that we're talking about. The technology allows us to communicate in a different way with the audience. And in my case, I've got two different audiences. I started off thinking I was just going to be an on-air personality and produce my own show called Find Your New Normal for cancer patients trying to deal with their journey and move forward. But as I interacted with the audience, and Donald Brent was saying Hangouts, I interpreted what I said, Hangouts were difficult, saying, no, Hangouts were a great way of working with the audience. The difficulty was within some of the tools like Comment Tracker. So I went over to Business Hangouts, which took care of all my technology issues. But using Google Hangouts to talk to my cancer audience, they interacted with me in a community fashion and said, oh, you're raising such good information. We need someone to actually help me move forward. And so I started talking to cancer coaches and built a cancer coach network and tried to blend the cancer patient with the cancer coach. And I monetize my expertise with the cancer coach side, showing them how to use all the technology to reach out and hug all of those cancer patients as they're struggling, everything from diagnosis through survivorship. But the technology changes so much that I find that my value comes still being on air as a celebrity talent, talking to cancer patients as a cancer survivor. Here's what it's all about. Here are the issues. So I can have an audience celebrity, if you will, but I can then move over to the practical stuff and work with the cancer coaches and all these technology issues of, do I use Blab? Do I use Hangouts? What's the envelope that I knew? Do I use a Ustream, live stream, straight, Wirecast, XSplit kind of thing? It's so complicated that someone's got to try and manage all the technology. So that's why I liked your comment earlier of, are you conservative? You've got to stay where your audience is, but you can be rebellious and break through the roof and move off in the directions, as long as you don't take your audience there till they're ready. You got to wait till they're ready to take that journey with you.
Well, that's a really important point. But first of all, I want to say how impressed I am that you could list all those products in one sentence.
I've used them all.
but also, I mean, going back to what Jess was saying, I mean, your expertise, using the technology as a vehicle to communicate your expertise. And I think we shouldn't, especially we early adopters and people who hop onto this and Google Plus and Periscope and et cetera, and social media for that matter, because, we shouldn't lose fact that the vast majority of people are way back there. I mean, they still don't understand perhaps, why social media is important, or why live video is an important way for you to form an intimate relationship with your clients and your followers. We're ahead of that curve. And sometimes I think we are in danger of racing so fast beyond them that they don't catch up, and we lose the opportunity to bring them along with us. Because we do. It moves very fast. Look at you. You just said that Blab is doing this major update in a week. I can barely keep up, and I'm on the platform all the time.
Okay, that's if the purpose of the expertise that we're talking about in this particular sense is helping people get technology and learn how to use it and embrace it. What I do, and Ray, I think what you do is not that stuff. And it sounds like Dave does that as part. It's one area that he works in. But for somebody who doesn't know technology as part of their expertise, that becomes very different in terms of what they're using and how they're using that technology. And that's where it comes down to soft skills. And I think that regardless of where an audience is or a niche market or any of those things exist, it's, does the person providing the service or the product have the skills necessary to have a simple, clear message? The simpler, the better. Are they willing to listen and ask certain questions and problem solve regardless of what it is? Because a good problem solver will have way more conversations with other people, because the part of problem solving is listening. It's defining the problem. It's articulating all of those different pieces so that somebody could be pointed in the right direction. Oh, you need more technology. Oh, you're hiding behind technology. And really what you need to do is go back to your vision and your mission and look at the product, because there's a gap here. Or, oh, you know what? You're thinking about technology, but which technology is best? Let's talk a lot more about that. And I think that, so we keep, even in this conversation, we keep coming back to technology over and over and over again, because it's a thing that we can grab onto and use and really connect with other people. And when we're in some people, what is it? I'm reading The Big Leap, and he talks about being in his genius. So when you're in that zone of genius, or in that zone of, we tend to stick to the zone of competence. We can learn technology, we can grasp it, we could totally feel good about helping other people because we're learning too, but we lose our zone of genius where we actually get turned on by what we do.
And I think you have to look at, what are you doing with it, as you say? I mean, I'm a psychologist, so I look at things through the eyes of a behavioral scientist, right. And I have for all my career tried to help people blend the best of high touch with high tech. And that's a unique blend that I can bring into the people that I work with, because it starts out with what is the message? How do you want the person to interact with the message? And as Ray said, hey, here was the bunch show one way. Now we've got Ray2Go a different way. And now we're adding Blab after as an after show. And I, like him, found that to be a nice blend. I'll take my Google Hangout, bringing everything in a confidential environment and have all the controls, and then bring them over to Blab so that we can interact freely like we're doing now, and embrace the individuals that we're talking with, and they embrace back to us. So although we talk technology, I like to shut that down. It's not about the bells and whistles. It's not about, are you using Hangouts or Business Hangouts or Webinar Jam, or have you gone to live stream or using XSplit? I mean, Manycam now on Blabs. I was watching all that on the weekend of how they blend. That's not really the issue, unless you're a bitehead, and some of us love the geeky stuff. But the audience that we're trying to talk to is there because they like the message that we said. Like today was experts. And so I said, I want to talk about this. And particularly in the format that you had it, you raised, if you had allowed comments, we would have been off all over the place, because I said, what about this? What about this? And he said, no, hang on. Wait till we come to the after show, and now you can ventilate and get your ideas out, and importantly, build a relationship. Ray now knows that I'm one of his fans. He now knows that I've been watching the show. He now knows me and may follow me, and that's going to open up all kinds of other relationships.
It starts a relationship, which is the kernel of any business, right? You need to build a community and relationships with people that you want to do business with. And with that, we're at the end of the Blab, but this is like really, really amazing. And I just want to end with saying, we talk about experts and we talk about technology, but it always comes back to the why. You always have to know why you're using this technology and be very focused on what you want to do with it, because ultimately it's going to be replaced by something else.
Yeah.
Your message.
Next week.
Exactly. It's important to keep your eye on the message and then just use the technology to facilitate that. So thank you so much, Jess, for co-chairing. And thanks for you're always so great on the show. I love Jess. We have such a mix of people on the Ray2Go show, right? Like they're all
great people to watch. If everyone isn't watching your show, I give an endorsement. Watch the show. I usually have my sandwich, and I'm right there, a virtual connection with you.
I appreciate that, Dave. Thanks so much. And thanks everybody for dropping by, and hopefully we won't have a screw up next week. We'll actually have the Blab where we're supposed to be. So take care. Bye-bye.
Bye now.